So you've seen the title, so we have to ask the question, who wants to watch a video and be totally freaked out? I mean, my answer is no, but apparently we're gonna do it anyway. Because if you do dare, you can venture online and you can go to certain websites where wrestling fans come up with the most crazy and basically insane wrestling booking storylines that make you look around and go, well, what even is life anymore? And do not forget, fantasy booking is good and you should do it. There is way too much negativity towards it in 2023. But yes, hello, my name is Simon from What Culture, and here are the 10 most demented wrestling fantasy booking ideas you can find online. Number 10, retooling Jack Swagger. Back in 2010, I absolutely thought that WWE was onto something with Jack Swagger. Every time I saw him, I was like, I like this dude. As ever, WWE never really capitalized on it, although he did have that kind of good tag team with Cesaro, but they then went down a very weird path. But according to one Reddit user, he knew what the solution was. Because all we had to do was rename him Jake Hager, which of course is his real name, tie into his whole wrestling American gimmick, and then go to Kurt Angle and say, listen, Kurt, can we please give your old theme song to the former Jack Swagger? And that all sounds fine, and I suppose it would have worked, but do you know what the secret sauce was? Do you know what the cherry on top was going to be? The one big thing we had to do was give him a buzz cut. That's right, for this to work, and in order for Hagar to have all the success, he had to change his haircut, and then he would have become a super duper world champion. Now, given that Vince McMahon is a little bit crazy, there's every chance that this actually may have worked. Number 9, the revenge of Kofi Kingston. So I'm gonna drop a warning in here, because this one is totally insane, and it deals with topics that wrestling should never ever deal with. So if you are a bit sensitive and you don't want to get all sad, I would say just skip by this one, I totally understand. Now, while the original person who did pitch this has just vanished off into the abyss, it created such a storm online that it's basically become an urban myth within pro wrestling forums. And once again, I'm going to warn you, it's totally off the rails. Now, I do like it in one sense because they wanted to make Kofi Kingston a star, and that guy is so great, he should absolutely be a star. I mean, he already is a star, but in this deranged scenario, Michelle McCool would have walked to the ring and said, oh, by the way, I'm married to the Undertaker, so we're doing some work shoot stuff here, and can you believe it? We are going to have a baby. Everybody was going to be over the moon for this, even though fans would have been like, why on earth is the Undertaker having a child on wrestling television? But the one individual who wouldn't have been a fan would have been Kofi Kingston, because in the narrative, him and Michelle McCool used to be a couple, or they used to date. So what does he go and do? Well, he puts on a mask to disguise his identity when he finds Michelle and hits her with the Trouble in Paradise. Now, this is absolutely stupid right away. It'd be like me robbing a bank, wearing a mask, and running away going ups and downs, ups and downs. I think people are gonna figure it out. It all leads to a funeral for the baby, who indeed passes away, and this is where we just should hit full stop. In no realm should wrestling ever be touching this stuff. It is way too sensitive, and it is just, well, horrible. The payoff, though, would have been Michelle McCool and Kofi Kingston at the buffet during the wake, and as Michelle is enjoying the food, Kofi would have gone, ha ha, you think you're eating some nice stuff, but you're actually eating your own baby. I really wish I was joking. The Undertaker would then challenge Kingston to a match at WrestleMania, which Kofi would have won. Now look, if Kingston wants to beat the dead man, I've got no problem with that. But in terms of the rest of the story, the first time I read this, I couldn't believe it. And now, that's right, you're watching it in real time, I'm deleting it from my brain. Number 8, Randy Orton, the Legend Killer Part 2. So 7 years ago on Reddit, somebody decided, I know how we should make Randy Orton a star. He should go back to the Legend Killer gimmick. Now, at this period, the Viper was already a star, and when we did the Legend Killer stuff the first time round, it was in order for him to become a star, but don't worry about it because you just get confused. And it would begin when Orton defeated Brock Lesnar, which is a pretty good start, when he would take on John Cena and tap him out in all but a few minutes. Now, do not worry about the fact that Randy is not that kind of a wrestler. In fact, now that I think about it, I don't think I've ever seen him apply a submission move. He continues to do this too when we get to the Royal Rumble and he defeats The Undertaker, and all 3 of these matches are basically pitched like WrestleMania main events. Nobody can believe that Orton is so good. I mean, he is on such a roll, even Vince McMahon comes out to congratulate him on a random episode of Raw and says, well done, Randy, you've completed WWE. And that line always gets me. Maybe that Raw then ends and it just says game over. Randy disagrees though, because there's one more legend he does have to face. He decides to do this at Mania, he decides to do it at a Hell in a Cell, and after he has made his entrance at the Show of Shows, he climbs to the top of this structure and he RKOs himself because yes, the last legend was Randy Orton. Now this is so good because that ending comes out of nowhere, but it's also borderline absurd. But I can't lie, I'd actually like it if WWE did it. Number 7, Sting and Shida hook up. To say what you want about Tony Khan, but in the 4 years that AEW has come into existence, the one thing he has got right every single time is how you treat a wrestling legend. Sting is right at the top of that pile because he has been used wonderfully, and when Steve Borden does finally decide to hang up his boots, we can all just give him a round of applause and say, there he goes, a pro wrestling hero. Someone on Reddit disagreed with this though, because he thought the best way to use the Stinger was to have him date Hikaru Shida. Very sadly, once again, I'm not joking. Now, Sting would start doing this by watching on from the rafters, much as he did in WCW, but this wouldn't be cool, and it wouldn't be like, oh man, what's Sting up to? They wanted this to be creepy, and it would all go bad when Sting would see Shida flirting with Jungle Boy, which would lead to a Jack Perry Sting feud. I mean, I want out of this. I mean, if nothing else, it also means that this guy wanted people to boo Sting. And in 2023, nobody should be booing Sting. And if you do and somebody asks, you have to go, no, I wasn't saying boo, I was saying booers. Because again, when it does come to the icon, he is simply the best. Also, in no way should he ever be dating anyone on wrestling TV. Number 6, Finn Balor and Hideo Itami hate the Fed. Sometimes, even within one of these deranged ideas, there is a little bit of intrigue. And I suppose that is true with this one. Because in the late 2000s and early 2010s, it is very true that when WWE looked at the independent scene, they were all like, these kids don't know how to work, what a bunch of nerds. It's why everybody thought the likes of Bryan Danielson and CM Punk would never make it in World Wrestling-tainment, and this is why it's fabulous they were able to do that, because they opened the door for so many other wrestlers. To tie into this though, Finn Balor and Hideo Itami, or Kenta, would be signed by WWE, and on day one, they would look into a camera, they would talk about all of this and how WWE just steals talent from Japan, and then they'd quit. Yup. The pair would then continue this war online as they just tweeted established WWE guys, and I guess it would annoy Vince McMahon so much, he would bring both of them back, where Finn Balor and Kenta would have a match at WrestleMania 32. And if you're asking why, I don't know. I mean, I don't even think there is a narrative here. It would just be two great wrestlers acting like they were massive babies. I mean, where does this stuff come from? Number 5, Sting versus The Undertaker. So we all wanted this, apart from Vince McMahon. And that's what you have to keep reminding yourself. It doesn't matter what you want, it doesn't matter what I want, we ain't in control of that. Now, I would have been happy if one day they had just looked at each other and stared at each other for a while before they had a 2-minute match. But somebody on WrestlingForum.com had a very different idea. Let's go. Because the big match is booked, and oh my gosh, the entrances are amazing. We do it at WrestleMania, and the fans are worked into a fever pitch. And when The Undertaker and Sting finally get in the ring, they don't do anything but lock eyes, and this goes on for about 3 to 5 minutes. The dead man then grabs the Stinger and drops him on the top rope, but Sting no-sells this completely, and just beats his chest. Although when he gets back in charge and he gives The Undertaker the Stinger splash, The Undertaker just turns to him and says, "No way, Jose." Now this is when the lights go out, and of course in wrestling that means, oh my gosh, something big is about to happen. But no. Instead, there are just 2 items left in the ring, and The Undertaker and Sting have vanished. Now this would have been Sting Bat and The Undertaker's urn for obvious reasons, with the weird poetic spin being that these 2 respected legends had so much love for one another, they realized we can't have a match, so they flubbed off. Now this particular person wanted it to come across as some sort of, oh, well done for everything you've done in wrestling, but that's not what would have happened. You would have pissed off 70,000 people who probably would have rushed the ring. Number 4, Mountain Man Roman Reigns. I mean, you could call Roman Reigns this now, to be honest. He is like a mountain. He cannot be moved. Now we go back to WrestlingForum.com for this one, because even though back in the day we did have that terrible mentor storyline between The Undertaker and The Big Show, apparently we're just meant to forget about that, and it would be the Phenom finding the head of the table and saying, listen Roman, you need some help. I'm gonna be your teacher. This is when the pair would move to the mountains like they're in Batman Begins or something, where Reigns would help out The Undertaker by, like, I don't know, doing a bunch of tasks and maybe putting ammunition in his gun before they went and shot bears. We'd also see Roman with a big old beard as he essentially become like a New Japan young boy, before eventually he would take The Undertaker's teachings, return to the ring, and become the WWE champion, I suppose. The problem is though, if you did do this, do you remember how hated Roman was back in 2016? This would have been even worse. Nobody wants to watch a bunch of skits with The Undertaker and Roman Reigns as they party in the mountains, apart from me. I want to see that, but I also want to watch the world burn. Number 3, the new Undertaker. Haven't we learned as wrestling fans, if you are going to do anything in sports entertainment, do not put the word new in front of it. It always sucks. I mean, this is the problem that Bray Wyatt had constantly, because everyone said, oh, you're going to be the new Undertaker. But sure, after Mark Calloway had retired, a bunch of Reddit users decided, well, we do need a new Undertaker, and we are going to choose, you'll never get this, in 1,000 years, Wade Barrett. Now, this wouldn't just be a figurative push either. It wouldn't be like, oh my gosh, he's taken the Undertaker powers. The dead man's soul was going to possess Wade to the point he would come out in a hat, he would come out in a trench coat, and he'd be like, oh, rest in peace. The problem being that Barrett has a very strong Preston accent, and in many ways, yep, you bet your ass I want to hear it. Now, this isn't actually that crazy for WWE, because do not forget that in the mid-90s, they did have a fake Diesel and a fake Razor Ramon. I mean, that actually happened. I don't want to do it anymore. And I would guess that this was all written in jest, and it did make me laugh when I read it, but also, it's worked. Let's get Wade Barrett off the SmackDown commentary table and have him just come in the ring and be like, I'm the Undertaker now. It would be so bad. Number 2, the New Nation. This one ties in too, because everybody wants to rehash groups. The fondly remembered one is the Nation of Domination, because of course they were around during the Attitude Era, although every time this is rumoured as getting some kind of second go around, a lot of fans make a very good point, isn't this just a little bit racist? Because why are we just taking a bunch of black wrestlers and throwing them into one group? Because for example, if you want to make Montez Ford a star, just push him as a star, and the man is so good, I tell ya, he's gonna be able to make it work, and he's gonna be able to get over. Reddit had a slight offshoot of this as well, because sure, we should bring back the NOD, but now they should have magical powers and use voodoo. Once again, I am not joking. This is why the Boogeyman would be in charge, Papa Shango would be brought back, and the third guy would be Kofi Kingston, who would indeed be allowed to do some shenanigans. I mean, maybe he could cast lightning from his hands. Apparently they wanted Kamala to be a part of this too, and powers would be coming out of his fingertips. Now we do have to remember that whoever wrote this was probably 11 years old, but also, just never do it. We do come full circle here. This is basically massively offensive. Number 1, The Undertaker's WrestleMania Gauntlet. Now this one does exist deep within Squared Circle, and once again, it did get some traction, mostly because at first you go, oh yeah, good idea, before you realize it's potty. Because apparently in 2016, the author of this was like, right, The Undertaker has to retire, he should retire at WrestleMania, but what he should do is face every single one of his WrestleMania opponents that he beat on his way to the streak. So essentially it's the final boss fight of Dark Cloud 2. And if you know, you know, and if you don't know, don't worry about it. Now in 2016 we had massive problems here, because let's just go through some of his opponents. Jimmy Snuka was but 12 months away from his own death, so that was never going to work, and at the time Jake Roberts never would have been cleared. The Giant Gonzalez died in 2010, so what are you going to do there? And as for King Kong Bundy, well, very sadly, he wasn't in very good health. And sure, Kevin Nash likely would have done it, as would have Sid Justice. Kane is never going to be a problem. I mean, you just ring up Glenn Jacobs and he probably goes, yes, hoping that it's WWE. The Boss Man also tragically died in 2004, so that's out of here. And do you think that Triple H or Shawn Michaels are going to lose to The Undertaker again in 2016? No way. Ric Flair probably would have snuck in there, but again, WWE would have been like, no, Rick, you're not allowed to do this. So there is no way this possibly could have worked. And this one wasn't pitched as a joke. it's generally what this guy wanted to happen. I mean, let's not forget that Randy Orton is on that list as well, so he would have to lose. Yes, there is one CM Punk. So I don't think this one ever had a chance of actually happening. Do you have any other deranged booking ideas that you've seen online? Don't put them in the comments. Just delete them and throw them into the abyss. But also like the video, share the video, and of course subscribe. There's also a video on the screen right now, so why don't you give it a click? And of course you can read more like this at whatculture.com, and you can say hello at SimonMiller316 or WhatCultureWWE on social media. My name is Simon for What Culture. Thank you very much for joining me as always. You make sure you have a lovely little day, and I'll see you soon.